just wow. I mean, well, Newbie here, and that's really about all I can say. Um, you saw the video about the N-scale layout that I purchased, and well, as I said, got a couple of buddies and a U-Haul trailer, and we headed off. And it turned out to be a pretty long day. 5-6 hours of driving, but so we went to, and I don't know if he wants me to share his name with the world, so to speak. So I'm going to call him Joe. But anyway, so we went to see and to try to bring home this layout that I purchased from Joe. And when we got there, first thing, my plan was, I've got to pick up with a U-Haul trailer behind it. My plan was I just backed the trailer down his driveway, and he had told me that he had a walkout basement, and this layout was in the basement. And so my plan was I just backed the trailer up the driveway, and we'd bring the layout out the basement door and around through the yard and to the trailer. And so we went in, we looked at it, and, I was in awe, and we come back out, and I said, okay, so, and I told Joe I was going to just back the trailer, and he said, well, no. He says, I don't think you want to do that. And I said, well, why? And he says, you haven't walked around the house. He says, believe me, you don't want to try to carry stuff up from the lower level to the front. Well, he was right. So he says, there's over here on the far edge of the property, there's a path that goes off the road and down the hillside and around to the back of the property. And now his property is mostly wooded. And so he said, come on. So we went and we looked at it, and he says, what do you think? He said, I know I can get my Suburban around. He said, but I'm not sure you can make it with that truck and trailer. And I said, well, I'm definitely going to have to fold the mirrors in. And there were 2 trees that looked to me to be just about exactly the width of my rig. And and it was a pretty steep downhill off the road and down into a ravine and then around behind the house and through the trees. And I said, well, okay, I'm going to give it a try. So we folded the mirrors in on the truck, and lo and behold, I drove down that hill, and we missed those 2 trees by inches on either side, and got around behind the house. And then now, getting from the very back of the property up to the house, I had to back a trailer between the trees, through the woods, so to speak, and even between a couple of posts that were not much wider apart than the width of the trailer. It was fun. But we were able to do it. We got the trailer right back up within a few feet of the sliding glass doors at the back of his basement. So then we went in, and you saw the video. Well, here's what I brought home. And it's right now it's set up temporarily on my pool table, and but let me tell you how we got it there. So I said that I wanted to try to cut it apart in the three sections of those hollow core doors. And so my buddy Jerry was on the floor underneath the table, and he said, well, what about all the wires? Should I try disconnect them? And I said, don't worry about it, just start cutting. So I took a couple side cutters and just started cutting wires. And he was also going to take the doors apart because, you know, they were bolted together. And so he was under there doing that. And I said, now, Jerry, I said, can you see where those three doors come together? And he said, yeah. And I handed him a long screwdriver. And I said, can you poke this screwdriver up where those three doors come together? And he did. And it came right up through the middle of the table. There's a coaling station about in the middle of the table. And that screwdriver came up right near that coaling station, and actually across the tracks from the coaling station, closer to the train station that he has there. There's a little siding with a train station, and that's where that screwdriver came up through the table. And so I took a saw. I took the track apart. I could see the edge of the table where the hollow core doors came together on the edge. And so I took a saw. I took a reference point from where the screwdriver was sticking up through the table, and I cut straight across the table to where those doors came together. And sure enough, we had it in three pieces in just a matter of minutes. Now, to do that, of course, I had taken the track apart in the line where I was going to cut and remove the buildings right there. So we got the cut, and then we started removing all the rest of the buildings. I had put a bunch of empty boxes in the trailer, and we started bringing in boxes and filling the boxes with the buildings, and we took all the trees and a bunch of stuff off. And that took some time. But then once we had all that done, it was actually pretty easy to carry those three sections out of the house and into the trailer. We put two of them in the trailer, and we put one in the bed of the pickup, and that's how we hauled it home. And like I said, I'm just elated. Now the layout itself is great. Joe did a great job, and I would have absolutely no qualms at all about just leaving it the way it is if it had a little more functional capabilities in terms of track plan. But having said that, what I'm going to try to do is, as I said, I'm going to try to incorporate it in as much of it as I can exactly the way it is. And I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work out. But I see some areas where I think I might be able to use a section of the layout exactly the way it is. Other areas, I don't know. But that's what I'm going to try to do. And I'm going to try to make it functional and keep as much of it as I can. And I don't know how that's going to work out. So I spent some time today putting track back together, and what you've seen up until this point were pictures of the way it came in. It took us a couple hours to put the buildings back on. We used the pictures that I had and to try to get the buildings back where they were originally. And now you see I'm running trains. I'm running trains on one track. I just got one track put back together. I'm not even going to bother with anything else, but I wanted to make sure it was operational. And you see here I got a couple of trains running, and they're running great. In terms of rolling stock, you see I've got the two engines that are running now. the blue diesel engine, and I call it a big boy. I'm not sure. I think the big boy was actually a 4884. This particular engine is a 2884. It's a Baltimore and Ohio. It's pretty close to the big boy, but I'm not real sure that it is or not. But that's immaterial. It's great. It is a nice engine. It runs good, and you know it's fun. So there's some other rolling stock with it. There's this Santa Fe. Um, it doesn't work. I don't know what the problem is with it. And you got this BNSF, and it doesn't work. And then there's this Daylight. I think it's called Daylight Steam, and it's in pieces. So I'm going to have to see if I can what I can do to put these back together, get them operational, or whatever it's going to take. But as far as rolling stock goes, um, those are the engines that came with it, and you see the cars. There's a bunch of passenger cars and some freight cars, and so that's the rolling stock. Probably my rolling stock on my layout is probably going to grow some, but this is a fabulous beginning. I mean, I'm not sure how it could have been any better. Yeah, it could have been better if it was a great operational layout, but other than that, I mean, come on, people. Um, it's wonderful, and so now I start to try to figure out what I'm going to do with it. How am I going to incorporate it? And I guess let's just see what happens.